Hello and welcome. Before we talk about microservices architecture, let us briefly talk about monolithic architecture. We're going to talk about what a monolithic architecture is, benefits of monolithic architecture, and challenges of monolithic architecture. Now, monolithic architecture is the oldest form of software development architecture, and it's also the most widely used architecture. Now, what is a monolithic architecture? It's a traditional and unified approach to software development. Like I said, it's the oldest form of software development architecture, and it's traditional and it's mostly used even up to this day. There are applications that are best suited being built with a monolithic architecture compared to microservices architecture. So a monolithic architecture, or in a monolithic architecture, application is built as a single tightly integrated unit. So it involves the client, the server layer, and the database layer, all built as a single integrated unit. Now, unlike microservices architecture, where you have your client separately, you have your different subdomains built as services separately, you have your database, or each services will have its own database. In a monolithic architecture, all of this, the clients, the subdomains, and the database layer are all built as a single tightly integrated unit. As you can see on the right hand side, we have our client, we have our server layer or the subdomain layer. If you have maybe an e-commerce application, you have your authentication layer, you have your product, you have your carts, you have your order, but they are all as a single unit, not separate services. And then all of these services are connected to a single database. So this is the idea of what a monolithic architecture is. And I believe you must have built a project using the monolithic architecture, or you must have seen a project built with the monolithic architecture. It involves the client side, the server side, and the database layer. Now, for modern monolithic applications built with this architecture, the client side is usually separated from the server layer and the database layer. So, for example, if you're building an application with a React front-end or an Angular front-end, you don't build or have all of those inside one folder. You separate your React front-end or Angular front-end from your server layer and your database layer. That is the approach that is being used, but most software nowadays are still built where you have your views, your controllers, and your databases all in one single project. So it usually involves the client side, the server side, and the database layer. Now, what are some of the benefits of a monolithic architecture? It has a single code base. Okay, so your views, your server layer, database layer are all in a single code base. So this is going to be very easy to understand because you don't have them separated. And then it's simple to develop. If you are starting a project, maybe a very simple project, you would want to start with the monolithic architecture, and it's usually simple to develop. But as it becomes complex or increases in size, then the complexity also increases. That is, we'll talk about that in the next slide. It's easy to deploy because you have all your domains as a single unit. It's very easy to deploy. So you just deploy all once. You don't have to deploy the views separately, the server layer separately, or the database layer separately. So because they are a single unit, it's easier to deploy. It also gives the ease of debugging. You have just a single unit. If it's a smaller application, it's easy to debug. But if it's a complex application, for example, imagine Netflix being built with a monolithic architecture, and then there's an issue that needs debugging. For that case, because of how complex the application is, it's going to be difficult to debug. But for simple applications built with the monolithic architecture, it's usually easier to debug. It also involves simplified testing. Yeah. Okay, so you just have to set up your test once, and then you can test the different parts of the application or units that need to be tested. Another benefit is it usually involves using a single technology stack. Okay, you don't have to use Python for one part, Node.js for another part, Java for another part. You just use one technology for the whole application. If it's Python, you just use Python, or if it's Java or .NET, it involves one technology stack. And because of that, it's easier to quickly get into the application. So if you are joining a team that built an application with the monolithic architecture, and then you want to get into it, if it's not a very complex application, because of it uses one technology stack, maybe the one that you know, it will be easier for you to get into that application. So these are some of the benefits of a monolithic architecture. Now, what are some of the challenges of a monolithic architecture? Potentially difficult to understand and maintain due to its size and complexity. Now, this involves when the application becomes huge and complex. Okay, like the example I gave earlier of building the current version of Netflix with the monolithic architecture. It's going to be very huge. It's going to be very complex. Thereby, it will be difficult to understand. Anybody getting, maybe new developer getting into the application, it will be difficult for them to understand because all of the complexities are integrated as a single unit. Teams have less autonomy. Okay, so everybody working on the application will have less autonomy to do or to use whatever technology they are most comfortable with. So there's less autonomy. The single technology stack is also a challenge. We saw it as a benefit. It is also a challenge because some parts of the application or some domains of the application might be built with a technology that doesn't really suit that feature. So when I say subdomains or domains, I'm actually talking about the features. Okay. So for example, you built your e-commerce application with your authentication domain, your product domain, your cart. You built it with Python, and maybe you have the payment domain as well. But the payment domain is more suited with Java. But because you are using a single technology stack, you have to build it with Python. So the single technology stack as well is a challenge. There's also a potential for slow deployment. Now, in this case, since you are deploying all of the parts at all times, anytime you make a change, you have to deploy the views, the server layer, the database layer. There's potential for it being slow because every time a change is made, you have to deploy the complete application. It's not like microservices where you have to deploy only the service that you made changes to. There is no possibility of scaling individual subdomains. So you can't actually break the subdomains individually, unlike microservices. So all have to be together as a single unit, and every time you make a change, you have to deploy the complete application. And then lastly, if there's an error in any subdomain, it could affect the entire application. Okay, so this is one of the main challenges with monolithic architecture. Okay, so if one part, maybe your payment service is not working, it could affect the complete application, or if the product list is not working, users might not be able to use because the whole application will be affected. Unlike microservices, if one service is down, other services could still be up and running. So these are just some of the challenges of a monolithic architecture. Now, if you go online and you research, you will find some documentations that usually push this architecture, that is the best form of architecture out there, that most applications built with microservices don't actually need microservices. You can just go online to read more about this monolithic architecture.